Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. She's a singer-songwriter that is a vocal powerhouse. Was on season 16 of The Voice at age 16. A viral sensation with a California country sound. People magazine said, quote, quickly proving she is a wild card in the country music industry, end quote. She's open for the likes of Tim McGraw, Blake Shelton, Carly Pearce, Kelly Clarkson, and so many others. Let's welcome in Presley Tennant. Presley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Let me kick off here before I get into something. I'm curious.
Yes.
Are you named after Elvis by any chance?
I wish it was that cool of a story, but I'm not. My parents, if they had a boy, then I would have been named Preston. They found out I was a girl, and they were like, Presley works. But I think I should just switch the story right about now. So this is the last place anyone might hear it, you know?
I agree. Being named after Elvis is pretty cool, especially being in the music industry.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, it was supposed to happen. And no, it's just a really, really cool coincidence.
Tell me about Norco, California, a.k.a. Horsetown. Is this horses instead of cars?
You know, partially, in a way. I mean, we don't have sidewalks. We have horse trails everywhere. You go inside the Taco Bell or the Starbucks in the drive-thru, it might be a horse in front of you instead of a car. I don't know. I grew up here. I was born and raised in Norco, and it's always going to be home to me. I go up to Nashville about once a month. I feel like I split time at this point. But every time I come home, I'm like, there's no place like Norco. Like, I love it. I'm able to jump in and jump out of, like, the real going to LA or anything like that. But I'm, like, 40 minutes from the beach, an hour from the mountains. Like, everything is so close, yet I'm able to jump in and jump out. And the community here is incredible.
So paying it forward in like a Starbucks line is a little different when you have a horse in front instead of a car.
Yeah, I mean, I might just be getting like a cup of whipped cream for the horse. Like, more now. Like a pup cup, but it's like a horse cup.
You started singing at a noticeably young age and did recitals for fun. At age 10, you auditioned for the BMG Idol, a singing competition in Temecula, California, wine country. The mayor saw you, introduced you to the 5 LPs, which is a Little Princesses, which is a Christian pop group. But tell my listeners the story. You tried to get in this group before, correct?
I had an audition. So once I did BGC Idol, the mayor had saw me and reached out to the owners of the girl group and the management team. And they had me come out and audition, and it was like a week-long process. These girls were professional dancers, and I could barely do a somersault. It was horrible, but I auditioned, and they kept me along for the week, and then last minute they cut me, and I was absolutely devastated, which is really funny because I didn't even know that the music industry existed. I was like, oh my God, my dreams are crushed. But no, and so when they cut me and I went back and I came home and I started taking dance lessons, not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right, that I could do it. I've always been one to, when someone says like, oh, she can't do something, I'm like, really? Watch, just wait and watch. It's going to happen. And so I auditioned for the group again. I got cut. Auditioned for the group again. They kept bringing me back. So I was like, all right, they like me enough to keep me in the back corner. And literally in the back corner, I was singing backups for them at one point for some of their shows. And then at that point, I had been dancing so much that they had me audition one last time, and I made it into the group. And I was with them for about 3 years till the group kind of fizzled out and ended. All the girls kind of parted their ways, and management team was kind of going through a few things. And so that really got my start into the music industry. We got to work with a lot of really cool people, and that's where I fell in love with being immersed into everything, whether it was writing, recording, rehearsing, performing, everything that you could think of. I was like, this is like everything I could have ever imagined.
You've been writing for a while, but when did you realize, Presley, that you had this powerful voice?
I didn't know. I just thought I was loud.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was like the big thing. It honestly really started as like karaoke, like growing up. Like that's where I first started singing. It was like karaoke at like Rodrigo's, like the local Mexican restaurant on Tuesdays, Taco Tuesdays. And so I'd get up there and I'd sing some Pat Benatar, some Kelly Clarkson, and that's where like I found like I wouldn't say a love, but a like for singing. And I was always the shy kid, so it was always really funny when I was like the first one to go put my name in for karaoke, and my parents are like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it. Like, just leave it alone." But I don't know. I always just thought I was a loud kid. like at home at least, or like whenever I played soccer, I was always the one yelling. But now, if you were to like tell me to go introduce myself, I'd be the first one to go hide behind my mom. It's I don't know, it's like polar opposites, but it works some way somehow. And I started taking vocal lessons to like control the loudness, because I was like, I don't want to be just loud all the time, like screaming. And I listened to so many different artists, like different powerhouse artists like Carrie, Miranda, Chris Stapleton, Etta James, Aretha Franklin, Christina, like anybody that had a voice like that, I was automatically grabbed to.
Listeners, I'm going to put links in the show notes to all of Presley's music that if you're not familiar with, you can get familiar with her. She has this velvety soul, powerful voice. It's kind of like this throwback with a little modern twist to it. It's hard to explain, but that's about the best I can do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are welcome. Tell me this then, because you were in this pop genre, how did you find your way from pop into country?
So I think from where I grew up in Norco, I was always surrounded by country music, whether I realized it or not. Like it was whenever we went out to eat or I was in the grocery stores or something like that, it was always there. And so like even like when I would do the talent shows around town, I would always choose like a Harry song or like a Martina McBride song. I remember it was the Norco Fair and I had performed Trying to Win. And this is like the second time that I really did country. And I usually did like musical theater, and I was like, yeah, this will win him over. I got this, singing some Independence Day. And then all of a sudden I lost to like a girl singing a musical theater song. And I was like, what? I was like, that just shows you though, you just have to do what you believe in. But I after the group ended, I mean, I went on with the pop way because that's what I knew at that time from being in the industry. And so I was doing the same thing, but basically solo with high energy dance and writing all this music. But I also felt like I was growing up a lot quicker than I wanted to. I was being told it's like, I wouldn't say being told, but it was like, there definitely was a thing where I felt pressured to like be a lot older than I was. When I was 15, it was like, okay, when can you be 16? When can you be 17, 18 and be a little bit more grown and step into that thing? And I was not that way. I was like, boys, cooties, not having it. Until I was about like 18, and I was like, okay, maybe all my friends have boyfriends, like maybe I should get one. No, but also I was very career driven. I was like, nothing's going to stand in my way. Nothing's going to tell me no. And I feel like I still am that way. But I don't know. I got to 16 and I was writing about stuff and I was like, I can't even relate to this. And anyway, and it was songs that either didn't have too much meaning, or if they did have meaning, it just wasn't who I was. And so I kind of went back and would say I went back to my roots in a way. Because I grew up listening to story songs. I love stories. But I also do love a little bit of like that pop stuff. And I've noticed that within my music, a lot of it has kind of blended together, which is really cool about country music nowadays, is that there's so many different subgenres within the country world. I mean, you have like the pop country, you have the R&B country, the soul country, the rock country, all these different things. And it's all kind of like one blending point, which I think is really cool for someone like myself, that I want to be able to do it all, but also I still want it to be me and have little influences of it in each one of my songs.
Speaking of all the different ways country is portrayed these days, you've been working with esteemed producers in Kent Wells and Buddy Hyatt to create this California country style. And I'm sure there's some people out there going, well, what the hell is that? So can you tell us what California country? I get it, but I'm sure there's people going, I have no idea what that is.
So I feel like there's two ways of classifying California country, because when I first heard California country, I would think of like Bakersfield type of sound, like Buck Owens, like all that kind of thing where that originated. But I think for me, because of where I grew up and being so close to everything, and it's like you're always surrounded by the palm trees and things like that, but then it's like you get onto the beach and you listen to a different sort of music, and then you go somewhere else and it's like a different sort of music. And I like to think that I'm bringing the influences of Southern California to my version of country music.
I would agree.
Not trying to change it, but I would say it's just who I am.
Yeah. It does have that. If you listen to it, it has that California twist sound to it. Yeah, it does.
Which is so funny because I feel like a lot of my stuff sounds very, I mean, compared to like a lot of these country artists that are out here, my stuff is definitely more Nashville. But it's also, it's like I compare myself to, or I wouldn't say compare, but it's like I listen to everything that's coming directly out of Nashville from people who live, sleep, and breathe it every day. And I'm like, that's Nashville sound. Like, you're able to tell the difference now. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm like a nice blending point of like the two, where I'm like, I don't want to lose myself too much and like my upbringing and where I'm from, but also I still want to like, I don't know. There's something about the Nashville sound that works. I mean, it has worked over and over and over again. Listen to what's all on country radio, but it's like, it's like, I love that sound. And so being able to do both of them is like the ideal mix.
Let's just go back a little bit here. Kelly Clarkson is the reason you started singing. You sang her because of you at talent shows, and then you performed the song with her on your 17th birthday. Was this like a surreal pinch me moment? Is this really happening right now?
Oh, absolutely. I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm going to wake up in like 2 seconds and I'm going to be back in my bed being highly disappointed. But it was one of those things that it wasn't. I like look back every once in a while. I'm like, that still wasn't real. Like I dreamt that. But until I see somebody else posted it on YouTube and it wasn't my own. And I'm like, oh, maybe it was real. No, I was on the show when I was 16 and that was kind of just, it was an incredible experience. I mean, getting to work with Kelly, who is my idol. She's part of the reason, like you said, why I started singing. At least I like to credit her because she was my first concert ever. I used to sing her song Because of You. Like even BG Seattle, that was the song I auditioned with when I was 10 years old. And then I got to work with her on The Voice. And then she was just so everything that you see on TV, she is all that and just so much more. Like so genuine, so humble. And I really appreciated that because it's one of those things like when people say don't meet your idols and then all of a sudden it's like you're let down. But I feel like every time I met her and like I hung out with her and I was like just jaw was dropped because I was like, how are you this nice, this talented, this funny, this pretty? Like I'm like this, it's not fair. You get to choose one. All right, that's it. And then all of a sudden I got eliminated at top 24. And I was devastated, but I was not to leave the competition, but I would say I was devastated because I was leaving everything that was surrounding me. Because I'd never been around that many musicians at one time. And it was like, they become my best friends. And then Kelly became like a friend almost in a way. And I'm like, this isn't real. But they brought me back out for the finale of The Voice. And we ended up singing a song, at Just 17 by Stevie Nicks. And I sang it with 3 other ladies. It's one of my favorite songs even prior to that. And so like I do that song in my sets every single time for the most part, which is really funny. But now I'm like, okay, at least I have a story to like bring it up. It's not just like, I like this song, like let's go with it. But we were coming off from playing and then it was commercial break. And so she walked up and she was like, hey, I'm playing out in Vegas on Friday. Do you want to come out? I know you live close. Like, do you want to come out and sing a song? And I was like, you're kidding. You're like, this isn't. Let me check my calendar. What time it is? Looks like I could move some things around. No. But I remember she texted me. My mom. I didn't respond back for a little bit because I was just so scared. And my mom, she was like, oh, like, did you reply? And it was like 30 minutes later. And I was like, no, I don't know what to say. And she was like, Presley, you don't let the woman wait. And I'm like, she's the normal human. This is like my bestie now. Okay. This is just the way we work. No. And then I went out to Vegas and it happened to be my 17th birthday, which was the coolest thing ever. And I sang with her the song Because of You. And then she brought me out a cake and sang me happy birthday on stage. And I was like, this literally is not real. And then I've been trying to top my 18th or my 17th birthday since, and I have yet to have done that.
It's probably going to be difficult.
I would assume so.
Let me ask you this. What's the best thing Kelly's taught you?
Ooh, I actually, this one, I remember she told me, she said, you have to believe in yourself so much because no one else can believe in you as much as you do. And I asked her, and I was like, "What do you mean by that exactly?" Because like I'm in my vocal abilities and who I am as an artist. I was confident, but I didn't believe it because that's when I was like trying to be something that I wasn't. And she was like, "You have to love your songs. You have to love the stuff that you're creating. Because if you don't, then why are you doing it? You're gonna hate it." And so that's when I kind of took the step back from music. I wouldn't say from music, but trying to figure out my next step as an artist and where I wanted to go. And I looked back into like country music and it felt so right. And I think I'm not trying to be something I'm not. It's just, I think for me being myself at home, it's a little different, but I also feel like it's not somebody completely polar opposite. It's just an extension of myself. And I really took that to heart and I ran with it as much as I could. And I was like, yeah, like I love what I'm doing now. I love the music I'm creating. I love where I'm at and like this journey that I've been on. I'm surrounded by incredible people like my team and my parents and my family. And I'm like, I'm so grateful for all of it. But if she didn't say that to me, I probably would have been like, okay, where do I go now? Mm-hmm. It definitely gave me like a little bit of like a shell shock of like, oh my God, well, she has been doing this a lot longer than I have. She knows her sound. Like, I feel like if there's any truth behind it to anyone, I should listen to her. So I did. And I'm really, really grateful I did because I would not be doing any of this stuff without that.
Presley, I want to get your feedback on this. This is something I think that is washed under the rug. It's not getting enough attention. It needs to be brought up because this world needs love. And I'm tired of all this unnecessary comments that people on these reality shows are getting from people that are hiding behind keyboards. And it drives me crazy because you bring it up and then it gets washed away. There's nothing going forward, but somehow, some way, this world's got to come together and get more love. And these unnecessary comments got to go. This hatred, this jealousy, all this other stuff that's happening has to go. What is your feelings on this?
I mean, 100% I agree with you. Let me just say that point blank from the beginning. I think it's really difficult being, I would say, anybody on social media because it's so easy to hide behind a screen and say something and not think that there's repercussions. Because before, it's like if you said something to somebody's face, it's like you really meant it. But half the time, people don't do that anyways. And so it's like when they're hiding behind a screen, they're like, I'm never going to see them in real life. And I remember the first couple comments, the one thing that they told us on The Voice, and I realized that with me being on social media and doing music, I'm allowing people to voice their opinions. But also I realized that music is so subjective and that not everyone's going to love it. And that was something that I did have to learn. So after The Voice, I remember the first thing they told us was not to read the comments. And I was like, okay, sure, yeah. And that was as soon as I was done with each round and we posted, I was like scrolling through the internet. Yeah. And then I'd get a lot of really nice and really, really incredibly nice comments. And then all it would take was just that one for it to like, it's like, oh, that one kind of hurt a little bit. And it didn't even have to didn't even have to be about my singing, the way I looked. It was just like, they said something and I was like, oh, but I've learned. And I think because over the years that it's like, I believe in my music and I believe in myself. And I was never one that needed reassurance, I think. In a way, it might sound really cocky. I'm not trying to be cocky. There's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. But I also am like, I'm comfortable with myself. Like, I like who I am. And so, but at that time I was like I was still figuring out myself. And I mean, I still am. But you have to have some really thick skin to be in this industry. And it's unfortunate that people think that they need to voice every single opinion. It's like, when did everyone's mother stop telling them, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all? Like, that does not exist anymore. And it's like, it's not harming anybody to just keep it to yourself.
You know, the freedom of speech is what's keeping all this from going forward. And until something is put in legislation that can curb this or allow the person that's receiving it to do something about it, I don't think it's going to stop, but it needs to stop. I mean, I don't understand why we have so much hatred and we want to have hatred for each other instead of wrapping our arms around each other and love one another and have faith and just be excited and happy for somebody else and not be so damn jealous because it's not you or this person went farther than your favorite person. It's a show, people. It's a competition. You know, this is their lives. You're messing with somebody's mental aspect, and the mental aspect in this world is getting out of control.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like there's so much, and maybe because everything is right there at the touch of our fingertips and you're able to see everything and it's a different point of view, but also social media I've noticed it's like, I even see it within myself. I only post the stuff I want people to see.
Right.
But also, and that's how everyone is. That's normal. That's human. But also I'm like, why does everything have to be that way? I want to go back to the days where Instagram, you could post a picture of a tree and no one gave two craps about it.
That's right.
And they were like, nice tree. And I'm like, thank you. Like, I thought so too. That's why I shared it with everybody.
Right.
Like, I wish it was just so, like, not everything had to be so, I wouldn't say strategic, but it's, as an artist, it's a little different because like this is a business, but also it's who we are at the same time. So the boundary between personal life and like work in a way is very crossed and very mixed. But it's like, I don't know. I also don't like, I like posting. I post all my stuff about my music, but I'm like, I want to post when I'm hanging out with my friends and show like a real different side of me, but not everything is like all like great 24/7, but that's life.
That's right. That's true.
And it has like these unrealistic standards. It's like, oh my gosh, this is how my life should be, doing this, doing that. But it's like, there's so many things behind the scenes that no one gets to see because it's all perception. Agree.
So
I'm like, I don't know how that coincided. I forgot the question, but
okay.
I ramble and I'm like, but it's like, I love social media because I get to stay updated with friends and all these different artists who are releasing all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, I would have never known about them if it wasn't for this or it wasn't for that. But also I'm like, could I delete it for like 4 days and then come back to it?
Exactly.
It's like a weird thing. It's like this endless cycle.
Tell me this. Who was the first headliner you opened for? And how nervous were you?
Oh, I think it was, actually, it was Tim McGraw. And I would say it's so funny because I typically don't get nervous. Like, I feel like I would get nervous and like hang out with a bunch of people I don't know. With like 10, 15 people when I'm walking into a room and I have no idea. And I have to like talk to them and like hang out. But it's like, if I'm singing, that's the one place where I'm good. But I've learned over the years, the less people, the more nervous I get. But the more people, I'm like, okay. I'm also blind, so I can't see. And I just got contacts, so like now I can kind of see people. But before that, I was just like, oh, like I just see figures. I can't see their faces, but it's like 10 people in front of me. I'm like, I could see your face, and I don't know what you're thinking. But I will say for Tim McGraw, that was the coolest thing because I don't know, I've looked up to him and it was like one of the songs of his, Don't Take the Girl, was like my dad's and I song whenever I'd go to soccer practice. Like without fail, we'd always play that song. And so when I got to see him and he's like doing his little like pre-show rituals before stage, like doing his squats like on the stairs. And I was like, wow, this is so weird. I was like, his jeans are a lot tighter than I thought they were going to be. No, but it was really cool to see. But I don't know. I didn't really get nervous around that time, but I think it was just because I was taking it all in, and I try not to think too much about like what's to come, and I just want to live in the moment. Because you can't get that time back, so you might as well appreciate it while you have it.
Well, you say you don't get nervous singing, but do you get nervous when you do the Star Spangled Banner?
Oh no, not anymore. Okay, actually, hold on. That's a lie. There are some times where I'm like, I do feel like it's muscle memory at this point with how many times I've sang it. But there are so many times where I'm halfway through the song and I'm like, are these the words coming up next? Like, I don't remember if this is right. And so I kind of have to piece it together and I'm like, well, gotta leave it in God's hands at this point. And I always get through it and I'm always good. And I never really mess it up, knock on wood, because now I said that, I voiced it out loud. It's going to happen. But there's been a few times where I'm like, ooh, was that right? Did I sing that right? And then I come back and I know I'm good, but those are the only times I really get nervous. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, all right, going to do my thing. I love the song and for what it means. And so I just always want to make sure I'm doing it justice.
Let's get into some of your music and bring up some listeners into what you can put out there. Let's start here. Tell me about this single, Half That Strong.
Oh, Half That Strong, I originally wrote for my dad as a way to say how much I love and appreciate everything that he does for me. Because I'm horrible with speaking my feelings, but I love writing and I love music. So I was like, what's a better way to do anything for a birthday present, especially? I wrote it for his birthday and I put it in a song and I gave it to him. And I remember we were out in Glamis. It was like the desert with all the Can-Ams and the quads and all this stuff. And it's like midnight. We had just gotten back from a ride. We're all sitting by the campfire. Somebody's trailer just got stuck in the sand. They had to have somebody pull it out. I was like, this is the perfect time to show him the song. I was like, yeah, this makes so much sense. And so I played him the song on a speaker, and he was like, oh, that's cool. Like, who sings that? And I was like, did you not listen? Like, I'm like being vulnerable and I'm sharing my feelings, Dad. Like, really? No. And then I was like, I wrote it for you. And he was like, oh my God, let me listen again. I'm so sorry. And so he listened to it and like started crying. And I was like, oh, I was like, my dad cries. I was like, we're not like a very emotional family in a way. Like, we're just very like, I don't know, that we've always been that way. But I think more that I write, the more that and like more life experience, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, just tell somebody you love them. It's
right.
like, it's one of those things. Yeah, but I wrote that for him, and Father's Day came around like a couple months later, and I was like, you know what? I feel like a lot of people could relate to this some way, somehow. Whether it's not about their dad, maybe it's about like their mom or their aunt, uncle, friend, someone in their life that has really shaped them out to who they are today. I just wanted to put it out there so a lot of people could relate to it in some way, somehow.
As I said, listeners, I'll put a link in the show notes to her website, and also to, if you don't have Spotify, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to link you to her Spotify page so you can listen to all these music that we're talking about. Her debut EP was called 600 Miles. Yes. Tell me the background on this story, because I'm curious.
So I like to say it was like a journal or like a diary I started writing those songs when I was, maybe 17, 18. So it was kind of during that time of, I just graduated high school. That was the beginning of COVID, and everything was like isolated. The whole EP kind of is like this. It's just a journal to me. It's like, oh, your friends are moving away to college. You like, whether you're in relationships and all these things. And I was a very dramatic 18-year-old. I was like, like my world is ending. It was not, but it felt like it was. And so I wrote all these songs, and it kind of, and there's 2 or 3 of them that I didn't end up writing, but I remember somebody sent them to me and I fell in love with them. And I felt like it really spoke during that time, about what was going on in the world. And I don't know, it was just like a weird time for everybody. There was a lot of heaviness everywhere. And with everything that was going on. So it was like, I had relationships and friendships, and people were leaving. And then like the first feeling of like, I don't know, like, during that time, it's like 18-year-old, like puppy love type thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And then from the world just being shut down, I was like, it didn't feel like there was much going on, and that there was a lot of darkness. And so I was like, I got to put this all out there. This was that chapter in my life. And a lot of it kind of doesn't flow necessarily, but it was just like this like chapter, I like to say. That I put out there, and now I can kind of close that chapter and move on to the next point of it. But I wanted it all out there at that point in time.
The song Break My Heart.
Yeah.
The lyrics state, I want you to break my heart.
It's the most toxic song ever.
It is.
I don't see that. Like, no one, it's like, don't, what is it? What's the saying? Don't do what I say, do as I do. Like, follow my actions, not my words. Right. But also at that time, it's like, I wrote it with Mr. Bobby McLam and Alex Dooley, and we were trying to come up with like hooks and things like that. And then he was like, how about like, I want you to break my heart? And I was like, that doesn't sound healthy. And he was like, it doesn't, but it's a good song. And I was like, okay, like, what do you think? Like, what would that mean to you? He was like, if anybody's going to do it, you want it to be this person. I was like, sold. I love that, because I feel like a lot of people are that way. And I mean, I was that way at some point in time too. I was letting things slide and whatnot. And I was like, you know what? Now I've learned, don't say that, because then you're going to manifest it. Anyways. But I don't know. It was just one of those things, like, you want this one person. If you're going to go through this over and over again, you're okay with it being this one person. As long as it's them, you'd let that happen over and over again. But again, don't literally do that. That is the worst thing ever.
We go from I want you to break my heart to God forbid we pray. Yes. Did you write this song?
God forbid we pray. That was one of the ones I did not write. But I think for me during that time, with everything that was going on, and there not being a lot of help because everyone was so secluded during 2020, 2021, that one really resonated with me. And because of, I don't know, there was just so many things, and I felt like it spoke on a lot on a lot of factors that a lot of people had been going through during that time. And there was something so moving about it. And so I decided to cut the song and release it on the EP. And I'm really, really glad I did, because I feel like there's a home for every place, for every song.
It was my favorite song that you did. I said was because your new single that came out in April, Somebody Like You, has topped it. Love this song, Presley. I mean, you say nobody never finds somebody like you. All friends tell you nobody like you. The lyrics, the song, it's my favorite song you got.
Thank you. I could be a little sassy sometimes, so I was like, I gotta throw one in there. I wrote the song with Mr. Michael Delaney, and I was out with some friends actually, and for like a birthday, and I ran into a few people, and there was something that was said, and I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me. And it's the saying like, oh, when after a breakup, someone could think very, very highly of themselves. Not to be a bad thing, not to be a great thing. But I was like, you know what, like, and they can say like, oh, you're never going to find somebody like me. And I'm like, well, that's the point. Don't mean to be that way, but it just didn't work out. Kind of don't want to find somebody like you, like that sort of thing. And so I walked into the right and I told Delaney about the whole thing that kind of happened. And we started going just random chatting about life and the like dating culture nowadays and all these different things. And he was like, yeah, you just don't want to find somebody like them. And I was like, so we're going back to this, like, this is what we're writing about. It keeps circling back around. And so we wrote the song, and it's a really fun one. It's very lighthearted, very sassy. But also I'm like, it's just opposites attract sometimes. Not all the time. And that's okay. You just got to take it with a grain of salt and move on. But I'm very happy that was like the first single back in a little bit. I want to say about a year and a half after the EP. I took a little break and got a bunch of more music done. And that one kept floating back to the top. And I was like, okay, this is the first single back. I need something fun, lighthearted, upbeat. I don't know. And I was like, and something to show that I'm not just dramatic 24/7. Like I gotta be a little bit show the personality.
So this is kind of like a new era for you then.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely, I mean, the more life experiences that I have, the more I'm able to write about. And there's so many songs, especially even like this past trip for me yesterday, flying back home, but it's like, there are songs on there that I'm like, I may want to move some things on my release schedule because I'm like, I love these all. How could I fit them all in there? But yeah, there's a lot of music and definitely a new chapter of life.
Listeners, check this out. She's going to be performing at Blake Shelton's Old Red, July 9th through the 11th here in Las Vegas, where I am. I'm going to come see you one of these nights. I don't know which night. It's going to be one of the first two, but I'm definitely coming to check Presley out at Old Red. Tell us about your excitement about coming to Vegas and playing at Old Red.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. I feel like I've been to Vegas so many times, but every single time it's like my sister and I would be watching ourselves in the hotel room while all the friends and family went out. So like now I finally am like, oh my God, I can like hang out and like see everything, see what Vegas is. But no, I'm really excited, especially to playing at Old Red. And it's like, I don't know, because of like The Voice and Blake Shelton. And I'm like, this is, I don't know, it's like another cool moment to be back there, and I'm very excited. It's gonna be very hot, but I love the dry heat, so I'm excited. It should be really fun. We are gonna be playing a lot of music, and people definitely don't want to miss out.
What time are those shows? Do you know?
Ooh, that I do not know offhand. But
I'll put a link, listeners. That way you can just go check it out. I'll put a link. Where else are you going to be performing? Are you going on tour anywhere else?
Yeah, so this weekend I'll actually be opening for Jody Messina and then Tyler Rich next weekend for Randy Houser, and then Tyler again, which is really cool. I saw him when I was out in Nashville, and then I'm coming back, and then I'm going to be out in Arizona right before I head out to Vegas. I'll be in Tempe, then going to St. George, Utah, playing out there, and then coming down to Vegas for a few days, coming back for a weekend, and heading back out to Nashville. So awesome. I'll be running around.
Yes, you will. You can go to PresleyTennant.com, or you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. You can find her anywhere there. Let's get away from music just a little bit as we start to end the show. Your style, it's like fringe and diamonds. Are you looking to get into a fashion career too?
You know what? At this point, everybody keeps bringing it up, and I'm like, I feel so proud of myself because between my mom and I swear my mom has a better style than me, but she's always the one that's like, Presley, this would look so good with that, and that would look so good. And I'm like, how did you pair those together? But you're so right. I would love to at some point doing like a little collaboration with a few people. That'd be awesome. There's a lot of fringe that would be in it. I would say that.
Yes. Every time I see photos, it's fringe and diamonds.
Exactly. You can't go wrong with it. I don't know why. I'm like, life's too short not to wear what you want. So might as well live it up and then do it while you're young and it still looks good. Because at one point it's not going to, but.
Tell me about this water bottle attachment that you have.
I don't think it's like a security blanket, but I think it's a security blanket.
You just don't want to admit it.
Yeah. I've had it for a while. I was in Nashville and it was like 4 a.m. and my mom was, this is like years ago, my mom was screaming at me, not screaming, but she was like, Presley, turn down your phone. Like I'm trying to sleep. So I built a pillow for it, but I was so exhausted that I accidentally ended up ordering 2 of them with my name on it. And so I was like, I'd give one away, but I don't know another Presley that would want a red cup or just another Presley in general. So I have 2 of them and they go with me everywhere. But I also don't drink a lot of water. So if I have that thing in my hand, I will be drinking it and filling it up constantly. It's like that reminder.
Got it. You have a big heart and you donate time to several organizations. You're a passionate animal lover, which I tip my hat to because I'm a big animal lover myself. And this includes something that you've done called Riffs Rescues that benefits animal organizations across the country with a virtual charity tour. Tell me more.
Yeah, so I started Riffs Rescues back in 2020 or 2021, and I love animals. They are our best friends, and we have to be the ones that advocate for them because they don't have a voice for themselves, but they do so much for us, whether they know it or not. And I was with somebody and they brought this up and they were like, I watched a video and it was so true. These animals are only in our life for a little bit of time, but we are in their life for the entirety of their lives. And it breaks my heart to see these animals in these shelters that don't get a second chance at life or don't find their forever home. And so what I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of online, like virtual live streams where I'll perform and I'll talk about the organizations or the shelters to help raise awareness and raise money. And so when it was on Facebook, a lot of people, they could donate directly to the organization right there through the live stream, and all the proceeds go directly to them. Whether that's helping for like the necessities that they need for food, blankets, anything like that, or if it's veterinary bills for different families, because a lot of these rescues and shelters will pay for veterinary bills instead of putting down an animal. They'll give them a second chance at life. So if there was something wrong, they'll take on the cost of these veterinary bills. But they do so many more things, and I'm just trying to get the word out there for all these different animals. But now, because of COVID and everything been lifted, I've been going in person to be seeing, like, to see the facility and meet all the volunteers who give up their time away from their family and friends, and they're there and spending their time with these animals. And so I get to applaud them and really take the time to meet them and meet all the animals in there and just try to find these animals a home.
Is there a link to that on your website?
Yes, on my website. It should be right there on one of the top tabs.
I'll put a link to that as well. Here's what I want to know. What is Presley Tennant's goals a year from today?
Oh, music on country radio. I feel like that's a big one. But I would just say performing and playing live. Performing and playing is like one of my favorite things, but also it's like writing for other artists and being recognized for that. I love the songwriting aspect because there's so much respect. I feel like when it comes to that, because it's like you're living it, you're doing everything. But I don't know, a little bit of everything, but I think the biggest thing is like music to country radio. I feel like that's the coolest thing about CRS every year, and getting to see these artists play is just the most inspiring part of it.
Well, I'm going to wait for you to get an award on the CMAs, and I'm going to go, she was on my show at one time. Before she was this famous, she was on my show. I'm going to be happy for you that you're winning a CMA.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, though, and coming on the show and talking. I wish you nothing but success. I look forward to seeing you live in person and hearing you sing.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Listeners, before we go, they always say you can buy somebody a cup of coffee, but you have to drink coffee to buy them a cup of coffee. And I don't drink coffee, but you can buy me a glass of red wine. Yes, you can do that from anywhere in the world. Click the link in the show notes. It's just a small way to support the show, and I will salute you on the next show. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale, and until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.